Do you guys remember this lady? Well, I'm trying not to laugh. This is her now.
It's been happening frequently at the 333 Miami Avenue Federal Court building. Janet Correa's husband was detained this week. According to her immigration lawyer, he has already been placed on expedite removal.
They voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump deport. You heard that right, guys. Janet Correa, the famous Trump singing lady, has had her husband detained by ICE. And not only that, but he got put on expedited removal. They want him out of the US. They don't want him. But of course, we've been telling them this all along. They don't want you, bro. Also, do you remember the time I went viral because I told people to call ICE on Latinos for Trump and the family members of Latinos for Trump? It looks like it's happening, and I couldn't be happier. You reap what you sow, and I stand by what I say. But anyways, play silly games, get silly prizes. Let me know what you guys think.
This is a Cuban Trump supporter from where else but Florida with a tattoo of Trump's face on his chest, who is now afraid he might get deported because of the recent surge in ICE activity. Watch.
He describes himself as a fan of President Trump, so much so, he showed us how his admiration for the president is skin deep. But his love for the commander-in-chief has turned a bit sour as ICE raids intensify across the country. He, like so many other Cubans, are still in jeopardy of being deported. Estimates are at least 400,000 Cubans who, like Eloski, entered the U.S. through the southern border and were released with what's called an I-220A instead of parole.
I wish we knew the answer to that. It's a problem because the government does not accept that as a legal entry.
So Cubans with I-220As cannot apply to the Cuban Adjustment Act?
That's the government's position.
In the meantime, Cubans like Eloski find themselves in a dangerous legal limbo. He came to the U.S. in 2019 and thought by now Trump would have helped Cubans like him legalize their status.
Why did you think you would be the exception? And what makes it worse is the man you support is the reason the United States won't recognize your release order as valid legal entry, which means you can't adjust status, which means you can't apply under the Cuban Adjustment Act. And you say you still support him. But you know what? I'm done explaining. Just cue the music.
Oh my God, I will vote. I will vote for Donald Trump.
Hi. We've now entered the FAFO phase for Cubans. Yes, you heard me correctly. To an alarming surprise, Cubans in Florida are being deported at record numbers. Yes, Cubans, Republicans who voted for Trump, they came here under Biden, under amnesty. They did it the legal way. They're getting deported. I highly encourage you to check out an article in the New York Times. If you're brown, he's coming for you. It doesn't matter if you're here under amnesty, if you did it the right way. They don't care. So we've now entered this FAFO stage for Cubans. So they're doing it in record numbers in Florida. That's because a lot of them, that's where they live. So if you didn't know, Marco Rubio is Cuban. Yeah, he came here from Cuba. And so they're deporting them right now in record numbers. Remember when he deported Venezuelans and then he attacked Venezuela and captured their president and kidnapped him? And then, said that he cared about Venezuelans? Yeah, he doesn't care about you. So FAFO, Cubans for Trump, especially in Florida. Hi.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kola and I'm happy to have you guys. And on today's trending topic, the FAFO season is still going strong, and with the current deportations in USA that have been going wild, let's talk about it, because what's happening with MAGA Cubans right now, especially in Miami. If you have been online the past few years, you know Cuban Americans were some of Trump's loudest supporters, and I mean loud, with big rallies, red hats everywhere, and singing songs of Trump again, vote for Trump again, and them saying Trump saved us, even songs praising the man. Like, the support was so loud and not subtle at all. Fast forward to now, and reality just slapped a lot of people in their faces. and they are now facing mass deportations. But before we dive in ahead, let's first watch how people are reacting to the MAGA Miami Cubans being deported, and then we're going to come back with a full commentary at the end of the video. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, guys, kindly hit that subscribe button. Push me to 1,000 subscribers, and let's dig into it.
The New York Times yesterday released this article. To their shock, right? Cubans in Florida are being deported in record numbers. Just last year, the Trump administration repatriated, aka deported, more than 1,600 Cubans back to Cuba. Now, for context, that is double the number of Cubans who were deported in 2024. And in the years that Trump has been president, he has sent more Cubans back than his 3 predecessors. And that's not mentioning all the Cubans that have been deported to Mexico, to places in Africa, to countries all over Latin America and the world because they had some sort of criminal conviction and the Cuban government refused to accept them back into Cuba. Now, what's crazy is that polls suggest that most Cuban American registered voters, who obviously tend to be Republican, continue to support Donald Trump. But there has been a growing amount of unease throughout the community with this situation. Growing unease in the community, but they still continue to support Donald Trump regardless of their family members, their friends, their neighbors being deported back to the Cuban dictatorship, right? Or to random countries across the entire world for convictions that these folks had in the 80s, 90s, 70s, right? And what's funny to me is the headline, right? To their shock, Cubans in Florida are being deported in record numbers, because it's the reality, right? This is a shock to the Cuban community here in South Florida, mostly in Miami-Dade, right? In their minds, this shouldn't be happening because obviously there is a dictatorship on the island. The situation in Cuba is worse than ever with health issues, so many different things, right? Unfortunately. But because the Cuban community has benefited from the Cuban Adjustment Act for decades, which has allowed for them to, after 1 year and 1 month of being in the U.S., be able to obtain permanent residency and then obviously become a U.S. citizen much quicker than any other immigrant group in U.S. history, they have this mentality of, I'm up here, other immigrants are down here. We're Americans, we're citizens, come legally, right? That's been the popular mentality for decades here in South Florida. Meanwhile, for people from my community, Hondurans, other Central Americans, Mexicans, people from South America, other people in the Caribbean, it's not a shock, right? Deportation in the history of Honduran immigration, for example, is something very normal. Hondurans have been getting deported back to Honduras for decades. Nothing new. But again, it's the difference in immigration enforcement that now has all come together. The lines have been blurred because now it's everyone. This administration has come after everyone, regardless of any former privileged status.
Did you know that Cuban deportees, especially the ones that are political dissidents and the ones seeking asylum in the U.S., face a significant risk of torture when they come back to Cuba? So when we ask ourselves, when will Latinos for Trump open their eyes, specifically the Cuban ones? The answer is they never will. And there's no better example than the Cuban for Trump than El Funky. He's a Cuban rapper that's currently facing deportation and possible imprisonment in Cuba since his music helped fuel anti-government protests in Cuba. Someone that's been really silent about this case is self-hating Marco Rubio, a Cuban himself. It's a perfect illustration of how much Marco Rubio has changed up during the Trump presidency. Even just a year ago, I'm sure Marco Rubio would have been the loudest person about this case. It's also a crazy example of how much Trump has changed up about Cuban immigration policies. For decades, the U.S. has rolled out the red carpet for Cubans, despite Trump refusing to help these Cubans who have overwhelmingly voted for him. They are still very much pro-Trump, including the rapper El Funky. Talk about fucking around and never finding out.
Well, well, well. It's Wednesday, baby. Now, you know I'm under the weather. And I was just sitting here pondering and wondering what would make me feel better. How about a cup of FAFO tea? I know it makes us always feel better, baby. And it just so happens we've got a FAFO in the brew. Yes, we do. How about I pour it for you? To their shock, Cubans in Florida are being deported in record numbers. You don't say. You mean that voting bloc that voted overwhelmingly for Orange Daddy, the pedo-in-chief, are now finding themselves being deported in mass because this current regime don't care about legality? This reminds me of another story that happened here, locally. You see, back in October, the sheriff here in my county of Mobile, Paul Birch, and his wife decided to put up a Halloween display. Very out of touch, I must say. Yes, they thought it was tongue-in-cheek and very, very cute to put ICE agents in their front yard chasing off those in sombreros and ponchos. Now, you might be asking yourself, why does this story about Paul Birch, the sheriff, and his wife have anything at all to do with Cubans who are here legally being deported in mass, boo? Well, I'll be happy to share that with you. This is a statement that was released by Michelle Birch, the sheriff's wife. And as you can see, she thought her Halloween display was funny, tongue-in-cheek. And of course, she believes she can say these things because she is from a Cuban immigrant family. That's right, baby. She thinks she's safe today because her family migrated here in a legal way. She also thinks she's safe today because of her proximity to a white law enforcement officer, baby. That's funny. I guess she hasn't been reading the headlines as of late. You know how those Frozen Crew agents are drawing their guns on off-duty law enforcement officers, hon? That's right. The Frozen Crew really don't care about your legal status, boo, or your job or your proximity to a law enforcement officer, honey. Wow. What a FAFO indeed. It would be a shame today if somebody in the Red Hat crew called the Frozen Crew tip line and made them aware of a Cuban immigrant, you know, living in a home in a red state, in a red county, since they don't seem to care about your proximity to law enforcement today. I don't think it's very cute at all to glorify the Frozen Crew, considering, you know, the facts we know today, boo. They deport U.S. Army veterans, too, even those who have received a Purple Heart, boo. And when it comes to the Frozen Crew and those who work inside of those detention centers, you know, Donald's dock owls, yeah, whew. So I guess you could say Miss Birch was glorifying sexually abusing detainees with her Halloween display. Remember, in Mobile County, when it's time to vote in a new sheriff, it should not be Paul Birch, baby, because they are glorifying the Gestapo, pedos, and they think they're safe today because of their proximity to law enforcement and whiteness, baby. Like I said, it would be a shame if somebody called that Frozen Crew tip line today and sent a Miss Birch's way, wouldn't it?
Thousands of Cubans are facing deportation because the Supreme Court ruled to basically take away the humanitarian parole that was allowing Cubans to come to the United States due to the crisis over in Cuba. And, you know, I'm not shocked because Trump said he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do in his campaign. And I don't feel bad because a lot of Cubans were in support of Trump. I live in Miami, so I know about Cubans for Trump, right? Even the ones who couldn't vote, they were out campaigning for Donald Trump. And if you know anything about Miami Cubans, they are racist. They are racist, not even just to like black people or whatever. They are racist to other Hispanics that don't look like them. Like if you have a little bit of a tan, they are racist towards you. They are colorist. You know, and I don't care if people say, well, I'm not that type of Cuban. Okay, well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the ones that you know act just like this. And I feel like Cubans shot themselves in the foot, not only just because they were campaigning for Trump, but you know, you're claiming, you know, to come over to the United States because of the crisis in Cuba and it's not safe there, the communism, but you all are flying to Cuba multiple times a year to visit family, to spend Christmases there, to spend summers there, to stay for a month, but you're claiming that it's not safe to be there and that's why you needed to come to the United States. But there's hella Cubans that are going back to Cuba multiple times a year, right? And documenting it. And that's just not the case for other, you know, immigrants who are going to be affected by, you know, TPS being overturned. Like if you think about Haiti, you can't even fly into Haiti from, like, US Airlines cannot fly to Haiti, right? You can get on American Airlines and fly to Cuba, but you can't get on any US airline and fly to Haiti because of the crisis there, right? I do not feel bad for Cubans because they got what they asked for, but I do feel bad for other immigrants who are, you know, facing deportation to a country where they really are not safe there and they have nothing there, right? I feel bad for the people who are innocent and they are affected by the many idiots that, you know, reside in this country and have the right to vote.
So, as we all know, deportations are happening in record numbers, and suddenly the same communities that were screaming law and order are now shocked, like literally shocked. They are shocked that immigration laws are being enforced with zero mercy, and they're now regretting their vote for Trump and wondering, who did we vote for? Because at this point, we're the one who are being served karma. And families are getting separated, people getting picked up by ICE for deportations, folks who thought, nah, not us, we're the good ones. And that's where the FAFO part comes in, thinking that you'll never get deported, you'll never be the one at fault, and now you're the same people who are laughing at others being deported. We've seen the Somali people being deported, and woe unto you. FAFO. Because many of these people genuinely believe their support would protect them, that voting red and waving flags and showing loyalty would somehow put a shield around their community. But now they're facing the wrath of voting red. But politics doesn't work on vibes or loyalty, it works on policy. And these same policies, they don't check how loud you cheered at a rally or how who you voted for. So if you are at fault, if you're already an immigrant and you're there illegally, you just have to go. And what's crazy is watching the turn shift. The same people who once said deport them all are now on the news crying, confused, asking why this is happening to them, saying they didn't expect this, saying they feel betrayed. Betrayed by who? You voted for Trump. You knew who or what type of person he is. And it's like, respectfully, the signs were always there. Come on. This isn't about celebrating anyone's pain, because families being torn apart is never funny at all. And so many people will lose, so many people will go back to their countries and they will leave their loved ones in the US. But it's about accountability, about understanding that your vote has consequences, yeah? And these consequences don't stop just because you thought you were different at all. FAFO season doesn't care who you are. It will F you. It will leave you effed up. It doesn't care who you voted for. And it definitely doesn't care who you thought the rules were for. So let me know what you all think. Is this betrayal? Or is this exactly what was promised the whole time by the person you voted for, thinking that person will be your savior? So drop your thoughts in the comments. And finally, credit goes to all the respective owners of the clips and content used in my video. You guys, you made today's work possible. And if you loved this video, ensure to leave a comment. Also, don't forget to like this video. And don't forget mainly to hit that subscribe button for better growth in this channel. Ensure you leave a subscribe, guys. And finally, see you in the next video. Bye.